Got it? Let me make sure.
Well, I'm glad we could do this test run for you.
Yes. Okay. So it's perfectly fine now, and I'm happy about that. That's first and foremost. So let me get it together. It's the New York, the American in me. So first and foremost, I want to say thank you so much, Stevie J, for even joining me and reaching back out to me, following up after my discussion with you just last week. Okay, so today we're obviously here to discuss domestic violence and you opening up a domestic violence shelter for men.
Yes. So, well, you're so welcome coming onto my channel the other day. It was a really nice chat that we had. Not a nice topic, of course, but very nice of you to reach out to me and come onto my channel and talk about that. So, yeah, today I wanted to talk, and thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. But I wanted to talk about an issue that doesn't really get talked about very much, and that is domestic violence against men. And it's a much bigger issue than what a lot of people realize, but sadly, it doesn't get the focus that a lot of other topics get, a lot of other issues get, including other issues for men. So I'd really love to have a chat about that. And yes, the end goal here is to open an actual shelter, a physical shelter for male victims of domestic violence. So thanks again for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Sure. Now before we even discuss like what caused you to want to start this cause, like are you someone who experienced it yourself, or do you know someone, or do you resonate with it some way?
So look, that's a great question. It's a great question. And no, I have never been through it. And I'm very, very thankful for that. I have had no experience with domestic violence, and I've had no experience with what I would say is, close friends getting into this. But I have met, since I have started getting into covering this topic, and we'll get into how I came about doing that. But I have come across so many people now, so many men in particular, and women as well. But what it really did was it opened my eyes to all of this stuff and all of the abuse that's going on out there, not just to men, to women as well, and how disgusting it is. And so for me, it really was, I was essentially going about my life, going down this path, and couldn't see either side what was going on. And it wasn't that I wasn't empathetic or wouldn't have been empathetic to people who've gone through it, but it's one of those things, you're in your lane, you're going about your everyday life, and it just doesn't come into your wheelhouse type of thing. But through, funnily enough, and I don't know if you're aware of what's going on with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard and what has been going on for the last 5 years.
I know briefly you mentioned it, but you can definitely inform me.
All right. So, and this is, it ties into my journey as well, into where I am now. So what basically has happened is, with Johnny Depp, back in 2016, his then wife, Amber Heard, or also known as Mira from Aquaman, they were in a relationship together. Now, in 2016, Johnny Depp wanted a divorce, and Amber Heard went and got a temporary restraining order from the court. And we don't have all day, so I'll try and keep it short because it's a very long case.
I mean, we can talk. As long as you have time, I have time. This platform is for you.
Okay, well, thank you. So anyway, these accusations came out against Johnny Depp from Amber Heard. And she said that she'd done all these things to him. So that he'd done all these things to her. And it's funny I accidentally said that, because what actually came out in evidence, and I'd absolutely recommend anybody go watch the YouTube channel Incredibly Average, because he has got some of the best breakdowns of why Johnny Depp is innocent of all of these accusations. And in fact, Amber Heard is guilty. So there's audio recording of her admitting to hitting Johnny, calling him a baby, telling him he wasn't hit after she'd hit him, and all of these things. So that was probably the biggest one that came out. And that's what got me interested in this, because I heard this audio of her basically emotionally and admitting to physically abusing him. And I was like, hang on, well, how can Johnny Depp be the one who's guilty here? how can that be the case? Okay, maybe it was
Right.
both of them. And since then, I've gone on this journey of looking at all of the court documents and, all the evidence. And okay, in my opinion, he's 100% innocent and she is guilty. So what that did though was I started covering it on my YouTube channel, and I wasn't aware of the interest in this. Of course, Johnny Depp's very popular, but I wasn't aware of the interest in this and the support for Johnny Depp from domestic violence victims was overwhelming. So every second comment, there was just hundreds of comments coming in to the YouTube channel from women saying Johnny Depp is innocent. He never did anything. It was Amber Heard. And so I just, as a natural kind of progression, delved deeper and deeper into the case and the evidence and all of that sort of thing. And then through that, I decided, well, I'm covering the court documents. I'm covering the articles because there was 2 trials, one in the UK last year, and there's one ongoing in Virginia still at the moment, which Johnny Depp is suing for defamation in both of those. So what I went to from there was, okay, what can I do for victims of domestic abuse? What can I do other than just doing videos or covering articles and things like that? So I decided to reach out to this community of people who were sending through so many messages and comments saying that Johnny Depp was innocent. And I said, well, look, does anybody want to come on? Does any victims want to come on and share their story, share their experience? And it may be just a platform to get something off your chest or to share what's going on for other people. So initially I had a few female guests join me, which was very, very interesting and was such a learning for me, because going into that, having no understanding of what domestic violence really was, or what it meant for the person. I knew what it was from what the ads on TV had told me, but from actually talking to real people, it was so interesting to hear all about it. Devastating, obviously, but also very interesting. And then through that, I had a couple of male victims reach out as well, and that surprised me, because again, it was just like another layer, another level that I hadn't discovered and hadn't even thought of. So
Sure.
a couple of male victims joined me, and listening to their stories, well, it kind of sparked another thing in me to look further into male victims and what support is out there. So that's kind of where I am now.
Wow.
Sorry,
Well,
I've
I
been talking
commend
a lot.
you. No, I commend you because considering that you don't have, you're fortunate to not have experienced domestic violence in any way, but you still
Hmm.
want to, raise awareness and do something and be a resource and a safe haven, well, provide a safe haven for men who have experienced domestic violence. Coming in October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and I'll be throwing my 4th annual Domestic Violence Awareness event in Brooklyn, New York, here in America. And I'm trying to get more men involved. So to see what you're doing, it gives me a sense of hope, because there are a lot of men who are victims and they don't realize they're victims. Um,
Yes.
yeah, they don't realize they're victims. They feel like just because the woman might not be physically assaulting them, they're not a victim. No, it's
Yeah.
known that women, whether you're in a heterosexual relationship, uh, uh, homosexual relationship, it doesn't matter. Financial abuse is a part of domestic violence, sexual abuse, spiritual abuse, mental,
Hmm.
emotional,
Yeah.
and then of course we know the obvious, physical. So I really encourage a lot of men to, not be scared, because I feel like when it comes to men, we have this idea that men are supposed to be strong all the time, and
Yes.
that you guys are supposed to be strong all the time, and it's no room to be weak or to cry. I don't believe in that at all, especially because I have a son, as you do know. Um, Domestic violence, every time I speak on it, it touches me because I am a survivor of it.
Yeah.
Um, Now, the conversation that you and I are going to continue having, it's a little funny considering my abuser, and this happens a lot of times as well, my abuser is now playing the role of a victim. So
Right.
yeah, so me, I'm like, okay, I would love to interview you because I want to hear men's perspective. Not saying you necessarily have the experience, but
Right.
obviously you've communicated with people who do have the experience, which obviously
Yeah.
you're in the field that you're in now. Um,
Yeah.
what steps are you at now with opening up your men's domestic violence shelter?
So, well, I just wanted to touch on something that you said there because it's so important because, there is a lot of male victims out there, and the numbers here, at least, are 1 in 3. So
Mm,
we hear a lot of discussion, and so we should, about female victims, because I don't want to be taken out of context in any way. I absolutely support female victims, all victims. I think, but what doesn't get talked about is the fact that 1 in 3 males experience family partner violence. And
yeah,
that is really a shocking statistic when you think about that, in a country of, well, we're, 26, 27 million here. So over 750,000 men, which are all human beings. You know what I mean? Like, we talk about statistics a lot, and you hear governments talking and throwing out statistics. But 750,000 human beings. And the other thing too is to consider with this is that the suicide rate for men is 70%. So when you look at the bulk of suicides, 70% are male, and so I'm not saying that that all of those are to do with domestic violence or domestic abuse and
right.
things like that, but a huge portion of it would be, in my opinion, because there's nowhere for these guys to turn. And it's interesting that you mentioned as well the what the UK call coercive control, which is the financial, emotional, all of those things. And they actually passed it into law. And I'd be wrong if I quoted the year, but very recently they passed a law in the UK under their abuse laws about coercive control. And to my
Wow.
knowledge, there's been 2 women convicted of coercive control against their partners,
Well,
which
that's
is,
good.
yeah, it's amazing, really. And it's a great step. So as far as where I'm up to with opening the shelter, it's at the very early stages. So I've got the Indiegogo set up, which is essentially to get the startup funding to go through lawyers and everything like that to make sure that it's 100% legal and established as a legal entity. And in Australia, you have to register with the charity
Sure.
board, basically. So I want to make sure that it's all done like that. So that's the first step. I've also reached out to our local representative in government and the federal representative in government as well, to say, hey, how about helping some men's health issues here? And this is a big one because it doesn't get any airtime, it doesn't get any airplay, nobody talks about it, but we've got these mental health issues going on here. And the other thing I'd like to bring up too is that when quite often with these men, because they've got nowhere to turn, and that's their words, not mine, they say, the victims that I've spoken to, they say, I went through this and I went through this and I went through this, and I was at the end of my tether. I was actually about to walk out into traffic, and I had nowhere to go. They even went, one guy went to the police, and the police laughed at him and told him to get out. And
Wow.
another guy went to a sort of our DHS, so Department of Human Services, basically,
Right.
and said, this is what's happening to me. And they actually told him straight out, you can't be a victim, you're a man.
Are you
We can't
serious? No
we
way.
can't we can't help you, you're a
You
man.
you know, I'm so sorry to cut you off. So
No, that's all right.
you just told me the statistics. You said 1 in 3 men and over there in the UK. Now I'm on my laptop, and here in the United States, reportedly it's 1 in 10
Right.
men. I feel like those
Hmm.
numbers are off. 1 in 10 men.
Right.
I feel like those numbers are off for the simple
Yeah.
fact of what you just said. Men will go seek help, and it's, oh well, you're a man. Years ago, a few years ago, the actor Terry Hugh, what was his name? Terry
Terry
Owens.
Crews.
Terry Crews. There you
Terry
go.
Crews.
Terry
Yeah.
Crews. He said he was sexually assaulted. No one believed him because he's this big buff guy, and it's like,
Right.
well, why not? I was watching a television show last week, and it was a bunch of females. It was like one of these ratchet TV shows that we watch. And
Yeah.
the females, they were like sexually harassing the male workout instructor. They were forcing him
Hmm.
to take. They were trying to force him to take his shirt off, asking him how big his private part is. And I'm like,
Yeah.
if a man did this to a female, oh, they're
Right.
going HR, they're recruiting, they're
Yeah.
going, and it's a double standard.
Yeah.
It's a double
It
standard.
is. It is, and I think a really close friend of mine said to me that if you imagine what some of the things that are said, and if you switch the genders and said the same thing, what would the reaction be? And if the reaction is entirely different, then that's not really balanced. That's not really an equality type scenario, if that makes sense. So I when it comes to all of this stuff, I mean, again, I really do support female victims. I absolutely do. But just to give you an idea of the imbalance that I've seen and that I still see today, the 2021 federal budget for Australia allocated $1.1 billion to women's domestic violence support. Right. Absolutely fantastic. I think that's great because all of those women deserve support. But if I ask you this, I'm sure you'll be able to tell me the answer. How many dollars of that are going towards men?
Listen, I wouldn't be surprised if zero.
That's correct. You're 100% correct. Not $1 is going towards male victims of domestic violence.
Oh my God.
Or any kind of support system for men. And at the moment, currently in Australia, we have three shelters. There are 3 shelters in this country for men, or that cater for men when it comes to domestic violence. Okay. And there's over 100 plus for women, and that's fine. I'm not trying to say we should take away any of those resources.
It's blatant,
but if we're going to
double standard, honestly, it's
right. If we're going to allocate 1.1 billion, can we at least have 100K? Like, can we get 50K? Can we get 10? Because there's the amount of people this could help. And even, look, I know it could be over dramatizing it here, but I really feel passionate about this.
No,
it could save lives.
One thing about me, we're going to run this back just a little bit. I'm going to be New York on you, real New York. And Jasmine's got the juice, and I cater to authenticity. So if you're passionate about something, speak on it. Like, there's times where I'm very passionate, and obviously everyone knows us New Yorkers, it comes off aggressive, but we're just really passionate. So if you feel like you want to project your voice a little bit because you really you care about the cause that much, go ahead, feel free, do you, because this is something serious. Something simple as trying to Google. I just Googled men and domestic violence support. You can't really find any.
You can't, can you?
You can't really find any, and if you do, it's attached with the LGBT community, and it's like not all victims are in the LGBT community. It's messed up.
Absolutely. And look, that's one of the things that got me even deeper into all this and getting passionate about it, is because you go and just do a Google search like you've just done. And after how many times on Google does anybody go to page 2 or page 3 or page 4 or page 5? Hardly ever, I would say. So the fact that after, say, 4 or 5 pages, you still can't find anything, it's really, really shocking to me. And I think that there's men out there, and I've got another avenue to take with this. I've got another angle with this as well, because a lot of people will say men are predominantly the perpetrators of domestic violence. So because of that, they say that, and because of that, they shouldn't, why should we care about that? Why should we care about that? Men are victims. They're also the biggest perpetrators. So who cares, right? But what I would say to that is, it's not every man. There is bad people in the world, female and male. There is bad people. We're not going to be able to eliminate those bad people. It's just the way things are. We're going to have to come across bad people. But what I would say is that, why would we not want to support men? Because these men who are victims are not the perpetrators. These are not the perpetrators that we're talking about. Yeah. Two separate things. The perpetrators should be charged. They should be going to jail. All of those things, 100%. But why should we take something away from the victims, the male victims? These guys haven't done anything. They're innocent. They're just the same as any other female victim, and they should be believed. They should be believed just as much as a female victim, not laughed out of police stations, not told that there's nothing for you, we can't help you, because men are always at fault. And so with that, I mean, men are always told to man up, right? And you touched on it
I
earlier.
hate
Man
it.
up,
I
come on,
don't
be a
like
man.
it.
What is a man? That's the overall question. Like, what is a
A
real man?
human with
I
emotions.
well, this is the thing. Being emotional is not weakness, in my view.
I don't
Being
think so either.
emotional, I see it actually as a strength. Being able to show your emotions,
And
you can
as a form
still
of communication.
right. Absolutely, absolutely. And so, what I would really just implore people to do, and I'm at the beginning stages of the shelter, and there's a website that's being built right now as well to support male victims worldwide. And so the idea behind that is it's going to be called Suffer in Silence. And the idea behind that is that,
Oh
as
man.
we talked about, there's so many men out there who are suffering in silence. And, I want it to be a place for men to go and to be able to get some support. And the idea being that it's worldwide. So, let's link a support system or a support service, even if it's a phone number or a hotline, to every country in the world. So, these guys can click on their flag and find some support, get some help. Because, there's been two cases in detail that I've covered on my YouTube channel in the UK with male victims. And, you know, it made me sick, to be honest. The level of abuse that these guys were going through, and I won't go into graphic detail, but we're talking weapons, we're talking, hot irons, we're talking all of these
Yes.
kinds of disgusting things used to abuse these guys.
Whew.
And
Go ahead.
yeah,
Last
no, and
year, sorry, I'm so sorry. Last year, I was on Instagram, and COVID 2020, I mean, COVID 19, sorry. Well, technically, COVID 18, just COVID, period. Okay.
yeah,
The pandemic
yeah,
last year, it sparked, the domestic violence numbers has sparked. I know me doing my
hmm
research, and unfortunately, I couldn't have an in person domestic violence awareness event, but I had one via Zoom. And
right,
I shared at least three different stories of women murdering their partners, and it was due
yep,
to domestic violence. One guy, he would post on social media, if anything happens to me, just know it was, his girlfriend, or it was just so many different stories that kind of
yeah,
like, it's sad because no one takes men who are pleading for help serious until something bad happens. And it's unfortunate because, again, it's this double standard. Well, just women go through it. No, it's not fair that men, like you just said, suffer in silence. Hence why you will be
yeah,
naming your organization that. It's just, it's messed
yeah,
up. I don't like it. Even a few weeks ago, there was a sports player, football player, whose fiance abused him. And,
hmm
well, it was his girlfriend. She abused him, was arrested for it. And a few days later, he proposed to her and said he's going to stick beside her. She was just upset that day. And me hearing that
right,
is why it's like, wow, you're a battered man.
yeah. Yeah, and it's so like that's a great point, absolutely great point, because so many times what you see, and the BBC actually did a really good in the UK did a really good
Oh, I
little
love
documentary on
BBC.
this. And so what they did was they put people, a man and a woman, out in a park on a park bench, and for it was about an hour. The man was kind of yelling at the woman, kind of
Social
standing over
experiment.
her, yeah, and then they switched, and then and the reactions of the passers-by was what was most interesting, because of course lots of people stopped and try and said, hey mate, what's going on, stop doing this to her. Then when she was doing it to him, everybody just walked on by, and when they interviewed the people who walked past, most of them said, oh, I figured he must have done something wrong. I
I've
figured he
done a
must have.
social experiment very
Yeah.
similar. I've done one
Oh
very
really, that's so
similar,
interesting.
and I'll never forget it because it still sits with me, especially with the whole racial injustice that we're going and the racism that we're just facing. So it was a few
Hmm.
years ago. We had different actors and actresses downtown Brooklyn, New York, here in the States, and basically we had like a lesbian couple, a gay couple, a heterosexual couple, and an interracial couple.
Hmm.
So the interracial couple, basically, it was a black man and a white woman. the white woman was
Hmm.
being abusive to the black man.
Right.
And she was it was great acting. She was cursing at him, degrading him. She was
Right.
really, to where I probably would have said something to her, because I'm just me. I don't care what color you are, how big, tall, small. If
Right.
it's a
Yep.
child I see acting ungodly, I'd say something as well. So, basically what had happened was, it was a black man who saw from across the street what was going on, and instead of him actually intervening, he said to the black man, "Man, don't do nothing to her, you just gonna go to jail, she's white, and just leave her," instead of him actually saying, "Man, you gonna be all
Mm.
right." Like, you hear this
Yeah.
woman abusing him, you see her abusing him, and you just gonna say, "Don't hit her, you'll go to
Yeah.
jail." Granted, we know, unfortunately, that's another thing that can happen, because the system,
Hmm.
they don't believe that men can be victims. I don't know why.
Oh no. Well, and I mean, that's horrible. A great experiment. I think that's fantastic. What a great thing to do. And I think you hit the nail on the head there when you said that systematically men aren't believed, and it's true because when you hear often and time again when there's a call out. So let's say a neighbor has
Unless
called.
you get one
Uh,
judge who's biased, then
right,
the men are
right,
believed.
right, and we know her ulterior motives, but
Yes.
but let's just, like, if we take the situation on the ground, like the police. Okay, so I've heard over and over and over again that someone will call the police, they'll turn up, and they arrive and they see that, yes, there's an argument taking place. And even if the man has some visible injuries, they will say, oh, okay, put him in handcuffs, put him in the car. Clearly, he's guilty. He's the one who's the perpetrator here. And that's even without asking any questions.
Yeah.
Even if when they arrive, the woman is attacking the man because they say, well, again, he must have done something. She must be doing that in self-defense. And of course, that does happen. And I'm not saying that it's not complicated, because it can be. I mean, if you're somebody, either gender, who's been going through something like this for an extended period of time, we all have a breaking point, don't we? We all have an internal breaking point where we may be the calmest soul, and I like to think of myself as a happy soul, but if
Yes.
we all have a breaking point where if somebody is physically doing these things to us, we may actually snap and retaliate or try and defend ourselves,
And that
and
goes
that could come
back to
across.
mental health as well.
Right, right. But and that's what I was going to say about men, and how people always say men are the perpetrator. And look, that's true, but I'm sure there is a fair percentage of men who are in these coercive control type situations, and they're just mentally so exhausted and can't do it anymore. And they get to that breaking point, and they may actually, and I'm not saying this is right, and I'm not saying it's the good thing to do, but they may actually turn into an abuser at that point, because they may get physical. They've taken it for so long,
Yes.
and they become a perpetrator. So if we're able to provide them with the support systems prior to that point, we could actually be preventing domestic violence against women as well.
I definitely agree with you, and I'll just say why. Because of my own personal experience, I was a domestic violence victim, and even I don't even want to say I'm a survivor. I'm still surviving, if that makes
Hmm.
sense,
Yeah.
because it takes a lot to heal from it. And
Hmm.
also, if you have a child with your abuser, there's ways that it can basically, in quote, never end in a way, because now the child might be used as a pawn. um,
Yeah.
we don't realize that when there's, for example, you said that there in the UK they basically made it a law of financial, like, abuse, in a sense. I don't remember their
Yes.
exact words, but
Coercive control. Yeah.
okay, coercive control. So here in the States, I feel like they need to do that as well, because there's a lot of women who, for example, their babies' fathers might leave them, and now it's, oh well, I want child support, or you can't see your child, and things in that
Mm.
nature, and the fathers feel as if they can't go down to court for custody or visitation, or
Yes.
or
Yeah.
for their own child support. The child might not live with you, but you can request child support as well for when the child is in your care. You know,
Right.
and these basic the basic information that men need, I feel like isn't like forefronted because I don't even know why. I really don't. And it
Well,
sucks because when you sit and you actually talk about it, it's like, damn, it's really effed up that there aren't many resources. Men aren't really believed. It's
yeah.
just so weird because here, like, again, here in the States, they are cracking down on women being the abusers in domestic violence. For example, they
Hmm.
think I'm an abuser within my situation. That's why
Right.
I'm loving this conversation. Um, Again, they think I'm the abuser, and I feel like that's because I had this one shitty judge, but that's another story.
Yeah.
You guys can
Yeah.
definitely view Stevie J's YouTube channel if you want to catch up on that. But
Yeah.
they are cracking down on a lot of women because even with me in my custody battle, I'm realizing a lot of
Hmm.
women saying, you know, I'm going through the same thing as well.
Yeah.
My baby's father, even a few women who said they were abusers. That's why they
Right.
lost custody. You know, so here in the States, they're
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
do something. They're trying to do something, but I still don't think it's enough because um, it's so strange that we're talking about the shelter situation in America. There really aren't men domestic violence shelters as either. There's men shelters, but then there's also couple shelters or like
Hmm.
gay shelters. But
Right.
there aren't really any for battered men. And if they are, I don't even want to say if there are, but what I saw on the news yesterday is that a lot of homeless people who knows their situation, how they got in there, they're sleeping
Right.
in the apartment buildings in New York City, in the hallways, in the lobbies of these apartment buildings
Okay.
because they're
Yeah.
homeless. So it's like homelessness, domestic violence can obviously lead to homelessness because I was
Oh,
homeless
sure.
because of domestic violence. Like me personally, Stevie, I rather had been homeless and safe than to be living with my abuser and fearful of dying
Yeah.
every day.
Oh, understandable. It makes sense. And yeah.
So I can only look at it on a man's perspective. It's like I'd rather be homeless than snapping on this woman, accidentally killing her, and then I'm going to jail because now there
Right.
aren't even laws for domestic violence protection. Like if
Yeah.
you committed a crime because you were protecting yourself, there's no laws for you to protect you.
Oh,
Not
no.
here in America.
Yep. No, and that's just it. Like most of those men who would end up homeless actually, are probably really good people because they didn't want to go down that physical abuse track. They didn't want to do anything bad to anybody else, but they found themselves with nowhere to go. And women too. But talking about men today,
But
like
it's men. We're talking about the
there's
men today because it's something that's
yeah.
so taboo to even discuss.
Well, and that's one of the biggest things that I'm really trying to break through. And actually, to be honest, in terms of the shelter and in terms of everything that I'm trying to do, it is one of the biggest barriers because somebody I know said, it's not a sexy topic. Like when you talk about female victims, I mentioned the 1.1 billion. That's obviously where it's going, and
Crazy.
there's Me Too, and there's Time's Up, and there's all of these things. And the sad thing for me is that most of those hashtags and everything were created with a fantastic mindset, and a
They're kind
fantastic
of
goal
sexist
in
though.
mind. But the problem is, well, you said it. The problem is that what they do is by default they make every man bad, and so when you want to bring up a topic that's not talking about the 1 to 3% of men who are actually people who would do I say SA, but like sexual assault and stuff like that. When you talk about the 1 to 3%, what about the other 97%? Most guys are good guys overall.
For
Like,
sure.
and so it seems like, yes, we all can agree that bad people, whatever the gender, should be charged, should be imprisoned, should be off the streets, right? We can all agree on that. But it seems when we come back to the other percentage of society of both genders, we've got this massive support for one and nothing for the other. And to me, that's the biggest problem, because all of these stigmas only get broken down through talking about it and through more conversations happening like this one and with others. And the mainstream media, sadly, it's like I said, it's not a sexy topic. They don't want to talk about this.
They have people like you and myself, okay? That's why we do what we do, because we talk about
right.
the things that aren't talked about in mainstream media.
Yeah, and it's so sad because the mainstream media really do. They have everyone's eyes, they have everyone's ears for the most part. For the most part, you know, they reach millions and billions of people, and whatever the perception that is that they put out there is what people have. And so, if they
Yes.
keep putting out all of the same stuff over and over again and ignoring these issues, then the perception just continues in one big feedback loop over and over and over again. And the masses, like you and I, different story. But the masses, they can't wake up from that because they never shown anything to do with it. And they just keep getting told repeatedly. In this instance, men are bad, men are the perpetrators, women are always the victims. Let's not talk about anything else. And so it never happens. It never happens. And so thank you so much again for having me on, because
Man, I
it's
love the
fantastic.
conversation because I try to have conversations like this with men, whether they're victims or not. I try to open the
Mm-hmm.
platform for men to, feel comfortable enough. So you reaching out, and for last part of your sentence, you were like, if not, it's okay. I'm like, man, if he don't stop that, like, no, get out of here. Like, this is something that we need to talk about. We need to discuss, not just here in the US and UK, but worldwide. Like, this is something that's so serious, especially, I can't discuss enough, like, the pandemic. I've been scared, not for
Mm-hmm.
myself, I'm safe, but for others, it's scary. You're
Yeah.
locked down with your abuser, and then
Right. Of
money
course.
issues. A lot of us know
Yeah.
the pandemic caused a lot of money issues. So the man not bringing home money is, it scared me a lot. If I'd
Right.
never been prayed up before, the pandemic shutdown definitely caused me to stay higher prayed up. Um,
Yeah.
I want to know more about. Okay, we spoke about domestic violence, but I never really asked you, what is it exactly that you do? I know you discussed different topics, but how'd you get into this?
Well, I mean, really, it was, I suppose, you know, going through initially coming across the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard case was what sparked it. And then, you know, couple of the people that I've spoken to who have been through domestic violence, I've actually become quite good friends with. And so having more and more discussions with them and seeing the follow-on issues that happen there, and talking to just more and more people. And honestly, one of the biggest motivations, one of the biggest things that motivated me into all of this is talking to female supporters of male victims. So
Yes.
there are, and that was so encouraging to me, so encouraging to me. And you know, one of the closest people to me, if not, well, actually the closest person to me, you know, also says the same thing from a female perspective. And so I wanted to talk about this some more. I wanted to find out what I could do. You know, I was going through this stage of covering it on my YouTube channel. So talk mostly Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, because there's a lot going on there. And the injustice is something that really gets my goat, so to speak. It gets me worked up.
Yeah.
I want to stop any injustice in the world, and this is one that I see, you know, and then becoming friends with people who've gone through it and seeing just the imbalance everywhere. It's really something that I got passionate about, and so through that, learning more and more about not just the abuse itself, the after effects, the emotional impacts. You know, these guys, and I'll tell you this one little story. So there's a guy in the UK who, and you know, he's got a very good interview on YouTube as well. But he was so horrifically physically abused by his female partner and emotionally. Now, this is how it would work. Essentially, she would abuse him.
Mm.
She would say to him, And look, I don't know what I'm allowed to and not allowed to say, so stop me if I'm saying too much, right? But what she would do is she would say,
I'm keeping
you
it
know,
clean because it's you, but listen, I can
okay,
say it.
all right. So what she would do is she would walk into the bedroom and she would punch him in the balls. She would kick him, stomp on him, and then she would step back and stand at the end of the bed with her hands on her hips and say, "All right, I want to have sex in 3 minutes. You've got 3 minutes to be ready." And
Whoa,
so
sick.
he would he would have to lie there in pain, excruciating pain, and try to get himself ready to
Oh
be
my
able to do that.
gosh.
Of course, he's not feeling that. Another misconception: men aren't just up for it all the time. So let
No,
me just put
that's
that out there.
true.
But he's in physical pain. He's lying there. He's actually bleeding in some areas, and she's given him this time frame.
She
And of
needs a
course, you know what
mental health
happens,
evaluation and she needs to be put her ass in jail.
right?
I'll tell you that much.
Absolutely. Well, and this is the thing too. Like, he was a big guy. So you talked about Terry Crews before. He was a big, kind of strong guy.
Mhm.
Anyway, so he's got to try and get himself ready, and he can't do that because, of course, he's not feeling like it. So he
She
gets in
beats him
trouble again.
more.
She counts down, and he's not ready by the time that she was ready. So then she goes and grabs a weapon and starts attacking him with that.
No.
Now, after that, and this is a standard repeated thing. So after that, he was allowed to go out of the house. This was the only reason he was allowed to go out of the house, was to go
No,
down.
and see those terms when it's triggering,
Mhm.
allowed to go
I'm
out of the
sorry,
house.
like, and
No, it
I
doesn't
should say
bother
as
me,
well,
but
like,
those are
if
terms that are
right,
said when you are victim. It's like allowed,
yeah.
and it's so unfair, but you can continue.
Yeah. All right. Well, please stop me at any point because I do realize,
No,
you've been
it's
through it,
okay.
and I
No,
don't
I'm
want
not
to.
saying like
Yeah.
I'm triggered, but when I hear the whole allowed thing, it makes me so upset that people
Yes.
feel as if they can have that much control over someone to determine when they can and can't do something or go somewhere or eat or piss or it's
Right.
just whack. It's just whack.
Exactly. Well, and this is the thing, and it's happening to this happened to a big, strong man who was with a 5'6" small
Oh
woman.
man.
So
Oh, petite
she
woman.
was a petite woman, right? So she would say to him, "Okay, you're allowed to go to the shop and get me my cigarettes. That's what you're allowed to do." She would time that as well. She would, as soon as he would leave the house, she would call him and make sure he couldn't call anybody while he was out. So what he would do, and this was a repeated thing over and over. So what he would do, he got to the point where he's walking around in this shop. He's got blood on his face, in his hair, like,
Oh man.
he looked a mess, and he was
Right.
emaciated too. He wasn't eating. So what he would do is he would pick stuff up off the shelf, and he used his example of Maltesers. He would pick up a bag of Maltesers off the shelf,
Okay.
and while he was still on the phone to her, because she wouldn't let him off the phone, he would walk up to the counter, to the person behind the counter, and he would grab the Maltesers and shove them into his pocket, and make no attempt to pay for them.
Pay for them.
No attempt. Yep, because he was trying to get them to call the police and at least get the police to turn up for shoplifting so that
Wow.
he could get out of there. But
Wow.
it didn't happen. They never called. The
Oh,
person behind the counter never called the police for the shoplifting. And I guess they saw him with these injuries and all this stuff going on and thought, well,
to
who knows
them,
what I'm going
he
to
kind
be
of looked like
getting
a
into.
troubled person.
Right. And that's just it. Like, great term, though. Great term. He is a troubled person, but I feel like humanity overall, people overall, with whatever, the causes are, social media, disconnection, COVID, all of these things, we've lost that human connection and the base respect for other people of, I don't know anything about you. You don't know anything about me, but I can still care about you at a human level and be like, damn, you look like you're in trouble. You're a troubled person. Is there anything I can do to help?
Exactly.
Can I help?
And it's so unfortunate because the store clerk might have seen him bloody and looking, as if he were in need of help, and no one does anything. It's people frown their faces. I even look at homeless people and I feel so
Right.
bad. I just wish I could help the world. I wish I was like a filthy rich person.
Well,
Because, like I want to just help the
I hear
world
you.
because it's so unfortunate that even with homelessness in the world, especially here in America, I know like it's a huge problem, a huge problem. And there's a lot of people who panhandle and, they ask for money on the streets or even food per se. Like a lot of times these homeless people are asking for food. And
Yep.
instead of actually being kind, it's like they have tunnel vision. They don't even want to look at the people and things like that. So I feel like instead of looking at someone's clothing and think they're the aggressors, the aggressors, like
Yeah.
figure out what's wrong with this person. Like a person just walked
Yes.
to your counter, bloody, looked troubled, stole directly in your face, and you just said whatever. Not,
Yeah.
hey, come back here. Are you
That's
good? Like it's confusing.
it.
And
It
again,
is, and
it
it.
goes back to the double standard.
Well, look, it does, and to be fair, I see the same thing with maybe females going through something hard.
Oh,
They're
I've
not
been in my
looking
own situations very
well kept,
similar
and
where, for
hmm
example, it was a situation where my abuser actually beat the living crap out of me, had me in a headlock to where
oh gosh,
my fingertips were then numb.
oh,
I couldn't
I'm so
feel
sorry.
anything in my fingertips.
Mm,
So for him to get off of me, I saw little scissors, like little scissors that you would probably use to cut your hair with. They were on the floor,
hmm
and I used it I stabbed him in his leg so he can get off of me. I'm thinking,
Yeah,
all right, he'll get off right away. No, he didn't even get off. But when he finally did get off because he ended up seeing blood, that's what made him realize he was injured.
right.
Um, I ran out of the home. I didn't even have
Yeah,
pants on. I didn't have underwear on because
yeah.
where we started fighting was in the bathroom. Like it was a long day of me coming home from work. You come home from work, you have to release those demons. So
Right.
I was home. I'm
Yeah,
on
of course.
I'm on the toilet and I forgot what it was. We just started fighting. He had me in a headlock. I used the scissors to stab him, and I ran out of the home with my pants and my underwear in my hand, but not on my body. So I had on a tank top and some socks with no bottoms on. My
Right.
hair was all over the place. I was the one who got arrested.
Yeah.
Um,
And
they
and
and they said
that's what's wrong
because
with the world.
And they said it's because I stabbed him. Well, why don't you guys? I'd rather them had taken both of us than
Yes.
just me.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well,
Well,
why don't you ask,
yeah.
well, what did you do for her to stab
Right. Well, that's
you?
just it. And talking about this before, it's complicated, that kind of thing. But at least, like you said, take both people if you have to. Like, don't just assume that one thing or the other. And I'm so sorry that you went through that. Like, that's horrific, absolutely
Yeah,
horrific.
there's so
And
many stories. We'll definitely like
oh,
you'll be more familiar with it because again, we are approaching Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and within the last few years, as I felt more content with my situation, and I'm still on my healing journey, I use my
mhm.
stories and my experiences and tell them to help me heal and to even inspire others. So I'm very open to it. The stories I have could probably be in a documentary or something.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Unfortunately.
that's very, very sad. I'm so sorry, but that's happened. But you're
Yeah.
right. Like, and there's so many more people like you, and there's so many more people like this guy in the UK. Like, there's just so many more
How
people,
is
and I
he
use
doing
that
now?
term.
Like, is there any update on him?
Well,
Or
he got out, and it's interesting how he got out as well because we're talking about social stigmas and how people just lack that motivation to help somebody. And like you running out into the street and stuff like that, the immediate reaction of people, unfortunately, very sadly these days, is not, oh my gosh, how can I help? It's, oh my gosh, how can I steer clear and not involve myself in this? Like, how can I
yes,
stay away from this drama? How can I stay away? And the way I see it, I could be, just, it's my opinion, I guess, is that it's fear. People are doing it out of fear. And it could be a fear of any number of things. It could be fear of getting hurt themselves. It could be fear of being yelled at. It could be fear of being ridiculed, fear of just putting themselves out there to say, "Can I help?"
it is
And
fear. It is fear, and I'm going to say that is because I'm in a situation now to where I'm completely safe, but
mhm,
I'm getting a little watery and teary eyed because I have a neighbor who lives right next door. who has a child, a
Mm-hmm.
young child, and when her daughter's father comes over, I hear the same things that I went through.
Oh, right.
And there's been times where I've called the police.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but again, where I live, it's obvious who would call. It's only me, them, and then one other person. So it's obvious who would
Right.
call. And me not knowing what this abuser is capable or liable of doing, it's kind of like, do I involve myself or do I
Right.
not? You know, but me being a mom, I involved myself by calling the police because it's a baby involved. It's a little
Of
girl
course.
involved, you know. But then I
Yeah.
realized the cops, they didn't do anything. Like they came, they were looking for him for like 2 days. They were like um patrolling the area for like 2 days, and
Right.
after
Yeah.
that,
Okay.
it was nothing. It was nothing. So it is a fear of getting involved because you, for your own safety as well. Especially, for
Yes.
example,
Yeah.
where I currently reside, it's a legal carry state. So
Yeah. Okay.
so
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
it's
I
kind
get
of
it.
weird.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I want to help. I really do, especially because I'm an advocate for these causes. But then when I saw the female outside one day because her mail came in my mailbox, I gave it to her. She was very, very nasty. Very, it wasn't welcoming, but then I had to step back and think, Jasmine, that was
Right.
you before. You were very nasty because you were going through things, trying to hide it, not talk about it,
Yeah.
and because you were told like you better not tell anyone what's going on in this house, you didn't even make eye contact. So I had to realize
Yeah.
that. So, and it that goes on with men as well. I hear a lot of men, they joke about it, but they say like, oh, my girl, she don't want me to go nowhere, and I don't think that's okay.
No, I don't either. And to be honest, and it's funny that we got onto that. And I'll tell you how this guy got out of that situation in a second. But it's funny that you talk about people and being in those relationships where it's like, oh well, yeah, I'm not allowed to go. I'm not allowed to. And it doesn't have to be an abusive situation, but even just in a relationship, people, like you said, guys are going, oh, she won't let me come out. She won't, I can't do this or I can't do that. And it happens both ways, of course. But um, I'm I'm really, really curious with all of that because it seems as though these days that one of the hardest things to do is to give kindness in the face of negativity. And that example you
Mhm.
used of the neighbor, she was mean and everything. And like, I come across mean people as well in my life, in day-to-day life. And what I've found over the last few months or so is that even though it's hard in that time, and everybody's different, this is just me I'm talking about now, but it's so hard, and I've really struggled in the past to do that too, to be putting myself out there, or to at least be just not reacting to negativity when it comes in. So I can still be kind, even when somebody's calling me names and saying all these things about me that aren't true. And instead of what my reaction previously would have been, in that case, would be to go and try and prove them wrong and be like, no, they're lying because of this and because of that. And I just decided, no, I'm just going to wish them well, and I don't need to get involved in any of that. I don't need to become any part of that negative sphere. I can
Right.
sit here and still be quite happy. It's not, and it's not going to impact me. You can't do that maybe in all situations, but just as a general theme, I feel like society has gone that way, where it's like, you know, I could be kind in this moment, or I could project happiness in this moment, or I could be okay. And what really happens is, very small example, and I will get back to we'll get back to this guy's story in a second. But a very small example is, you go to the checkout at the supermarket, or at the shop, any kind of shop, and the person behind the counter says, "Hi, how you going?" And you go, "Yeah, good. How are you?" And but no other person is actually asking, "How are you going?" It's just a robotic thing that everybody does. There's like this kind of platitude. But really, what happens when you change that and you switch that around, and you don't just go with that robotic response, and you actually ask them, "Hey, how have you been affected by COVID? How are things going for you right now, in your life?" You get the biggest shock, and you don't always just get the biggest shock. What you find is you get a big smile too,
Yeah,
because people like it when you're interested in them.
that is
And
very
it's not
true.
like you're going to take them out for a coffee after that, but it's just the tiniest little interaction, and you can make somebody smile for the day.
Oh man,
So,
that's so true.
and so that's kind of where I'm trying to get to, and I'm trying to be like. But with this guy and how we got out of this horrendous situation in the UK, what happened actually was a young guy who had a family. So and one of the neighbors had a wife and a baby, and he actually called the police and said, I think this guy's being abused, and I think this is what's going on, and everything like that. And it was kind of a coincidence and lucky in a way that he did that, because on that same day, this poor guy had been through 6 hours of abuse, 6 hours of constant
Oh
abuse,
my goodness.
including being burned, stabbed, like all of these
All by
different
this
things,
female.
all by this female. He'd had his shoulder broken. So when the police arrived, luckily in time, and when he woke up in hospital, his arm was blue from the shoulder all the way
Oh
to his hand, like
no.
completely blue, because all the blood supply had been cut off. And so he got out. But what's interesting about the neighbor, this young guy who called the police, because Ian was the guy's name who was being abused. So Ian called this guy later on down the track to thank him and said, "Thank you. You quite literally saved my life in that moment, that when you called." And the young fella said, I have to be honest with you. I called from a selfish point of view, because I was afraid of what this lady might do to my new baby or to my wife or something like that. So it was a selfish reason that I called. I'm
Right.
still glad that I did and that you got
It
out of
still
there. But
helped him.
yeah, so
Man.
it's stories like that are so prevalent, but we don't get to hear it. We never hear it because it doesn't get talked about. The media don't talk about it. It's not a topic that anyone wants to really touch on. And same thing for him. He didn't get any help. There was no help even after the police came, and it was 100%. He had all these injuries. It was 100% she'd done this to him. He still he basically had to beg to stay in a homeless shelter for a week to stay safe, because she told him as well, part of this control, she told him that her brothers were part of organized crime, and that if he ever left, then she would get her brothers to come around and
Oh
what.
my goodness. This mental
So
abuse. She is a
yeah,
worthless piece of crap.
yes, she is 100% a piece of crap. But look, I guess the moral of the story is he did get out. He was able to get out. He has since shared his story. He went to court. She did get convicted, and
Oh great.
she got a jail sentence, which is a good news story. But he had to get to that point, all the way to that point of almost dying
Yeah, that's what
before.
they do. They wait
Yeah.
until you're on the verge of dying or even dead to raise awareness or to make you feel
Hmm.
like you matter. It's just so unfortunate. I'm so glad he was able to make it out. He's okay and she was convicted, because again, that's rare to even hear a female be convicted
Right.
for being
Yeah.
an abuser. So I'm so glad. Oh, I don't like that. I just don't like abuse in any way, shape, or form. And even to tally back on abuse and on both men and women, now that if there's a child involved, it's even worse, because it's like you said earlier, now there's a chance the child can grow up to be this abuser,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
and it's like, what are the resources that are out there to where we can prevent it? There's like no domestic violence prevention. Like, what are they going to say? Oh, you can go to therapy.
Mm.
No, but there's more to it than just saying go to therapy. You have to first identify the problem. That's how you
Yeah.
solve anything.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I think it's one of those things. It's really difficult, and it's a multi-layered issue, really, when it comes to that. I think because not only could the young child turn into an abuser, they could turn into a victim, a perpetual victim, because
Yes.
they see that as what's normal. That's what I've grown up with. That's what I expect from a relationship that I get into. I expect to be treated this way. So they could also become a long-term victim. And really, to me, it comes back to so much to do with society overall. Really, we teach our kids, or I may be saying an unpopular opinion here, but to me, the school system and education systems are focused on the wrong subjects,
Yes.
because where's the emotional coaching? Where's the emotional preparation for these human beings who are going to be coming into a wider world? Because as you grow up, obviously the world expands and gets wider and wider for you. So where's the relationship coaching? Where's the emotional coaching? Where is all of that? No, we're worried about algebra, we're worried about long division and all of this stuff. I
Right.
can tell you quite honestly, I was horrible at school. I It's not that I feel I'm unintelligent, but I wasn't interested. It did not interest me at all. There was two subjects that did. One was English, and one was like physical education or gym. Like that was
That's
the thing that
everyone's. Lunch
that
and
that's
physical education are everyone's faves.
right. But I feel like there's years and years and years that people spend in arguably the most important years of their life being told, this is what you think, this is how you think, don't think that way, don't think that way, don't have thoughts of your own, and how you feel is irrelevant to what you should think and how you should think about a certain thing. So everyone's just conditioned to get out into this world where, oh, now the media is telling me what I should think. Great. The media says I should think this and that and not ignore this. So overall, people
You
don't
get
have that.
conditioned.
Right. They don't have that personal agency to own themselves and say, no, this is what I actually feel. This is what I actually think. And that's okay. It's okay that I feel like this is the wrong thing to do. It's okay that I feel like this is the right thing to do. And of course, I'm not talking about an abuser saying that I feel like this is the right thing to do. I'm talking about the majority of people out there who are good people and just want to go about their lives and, put happiness into the world. And that's what we should be doing. But I feel like whether it be the child who may become the perpetual victim or the child who may become the abuser, the systems that we have in society don't help. Schools don't help. Government overall really doesn't help either, because they're not focusing on the right areas. They're not focusing on humanity itself and being just kind and respectful, and how to have interactions and relationships with people that are kind and respectful.
I agree. I definitely do agree. I want to say thank you again, like, because it's rare and it's so unfortunate that we have to say it's rare, but it is rare for men to want to take the initiative to raise awareness to the domestic violence that goes on in the community of men. You know what I mean? Let alone not just raise awareness, but actually do something about it. Because, like you said, you can film 100,000 videos, but
Right.
what are you gonna do after that? So I commend you. I applaud you. I'm looking forward to help in any way that I can. Also, remember October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, so there's things certain events that you can put together as well there in the UK.
Yep.
Whether it's some type of clothing drive, like one thing that I'm good
Yeah.
on doing is whenever I throw my events, I allow people to bring clothing, whether it's just not just clothing, but clothing, canned goods, dried goods, even
Yeah.
like men products, shaving cream and razors and
Right.
things
Yeah.
like that. Like men need those things. I even sometimes at my events, I even had a barber come one time to give men haircuts.
Nice. That's a
And
great idea.
yeah, because domestic violence can also make people feel in quote ugly, and they can lack confidence. So I had a
Yeah.
makeup
Yeah.
artist, and I had a barber, and I had a hair braider. So, and I want
Oh, that's
people to
so
have,
cool.
yeah, I want people to have confidence. So those are just some suggestions that maybe you can start looking into. And for the month of October,
Why?
considering
Absolutely. Yeah.
it's Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and this is something that I'm not going to say it's going to end, because there are shitty people in the world. Like there's
Right.
shitty people in the world,
Yeah.
But if we can raise awareness together, what doesn't matter the country, because it happens everywhere. Like you know. Um,
Yes.
I
Yeah.
feel like together we can gain the right amount of resources for men as well. And it's so strange because again, people will look at me like, Jasmine, you're a victim. Like, how are you defending men? Because I'm a person, I'm a human with common sense, with decency, with
Right.
dignity.
Yes.
Like, I don't believe no one should be putting hands on anyone and thinking you can
Yeah.
control anyone. That's disgusting behavior to me. It's
Yeah,
disgusting
absolutely.
behavior to me. And I feel like it stems on people's upbringings as well, because we already discussed children seeing it. Like, even with my child, he says sometimes himself, because I ask him, I'm like, why are you so mean to other children? Sometimes he's not mean around children with me, but when he's with his
Hmm.
dad, I see he's mean. He's like, well, that's because I see my dad act that way to people.
Right. And that's got to be so hard to listen to, like
Oh yes.
hearing that from kids. So hard because
So
yeah. Oh, and you're right. The product of environment, like that's what happens. And I feel like also, and it's great that that you had that conversation, even because there's so many parents out there who go straight to telling their child what to do, even if they're not feeling like, and won't. And this is, I find, the key. People, they won't ask any questions of their child. It's like, you're the child, I'm the adult. I will just tell you how to feel, and I will tell
mhm.
you to be quiet. I'll tell
Oh
you to stop
snap.
crying. I'll tell you this. But the thing is, what you find is, like, even if they're angry, and you just say to them, it's okay to be angry. You can tell me, you can talk to me about why you're angry, and it's okay. You're not in
Yeah,
trouble. And once they feel like they can actually share and lift that burden off them, because they feel it, like the kids are really emotional, and they feel it. So once that burden's gone, it's like, well, actually, I kind of feel better now. I kind
exactly.
of, I kind of feel okay because I was able to share it. I didn't get in trouble. There was no anger. There was no nothing.
And that's
So,
exactly how I
mm,
operate. You have to speak to children, not at children. Not even just children, you
mhm.
have to speak to people and not at people. Like,
Right,
you'll get a better
right.
response if you're speaking to a person instead of at them.
Yeah, even if there is some adults out there that behave like children, you can still,
And you can still
you can
speak to
still
the person.
speak to
A
them
person will
nicely.
always be
Yeah.
more receptive when you speak to them as their equal and not like they're below you or something. Especially when it comes to children. If a child is doing something and you just say to them, "Stop! Don't do that because I said so." Well, how are you allowing the child to fully understand why they shouldn't be doing what you're telling them to not do?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. 100%.
You
100%.
know.
And I just want to say as well, like, you thanked me, and I thank you for having me on.
Man, this
It's been
conversation is
fantastic.
dope. It can go forever. I don't know how late it is there. Well, you're like five
Well,
hours after me, right?
I'm in the future. I'm in the future. So it's the 28th for me. It's Wednesday morning.
Yes.
So I'm going to be heading to work pretty soon. So I'll probably have to
Oh
get going
man.
soon. But
Oh well, I thank
yeah.
you so much for staying up and talking to me. It right now it's 4:44. I have a really close friend who lives in the UK in like
Hmm.
Brixton or something. I never visited, but she
Okay.
always visits here, and I know she's
Yeah.
5 hours ahead. So
Right.
you're further.
So yeah, well, I'm in the south of Australia, so
Okay.
I think it's about 12. I don't know. I get so
Sheesh.
confused. I
Well,
catch
yeah, you
I
have
catch
to go catch some Z's. You have to take a nap so
well,
you can wake up and get some coffee and go to work.
well, it's funny this, like, and I laugh about this, with people, because I catch up with so many people overseas, and
Of
whether it's
course.
Canada, US, UK, all over the place. And you would think after doing that for 12 months, I would have the time zones pretty well figured out, but I have to use an app. I'm like, okay, what's this? Okay, what time is it if I do this, and what day is it? Oh, I get so confused still, but
Okay, so it's
we
four
get there.
forty-five p.m. Eastern here. So, and you said you're
Right.
12 hours, so it's 4:45 a.m.
Okay, so it must be a bit more than that, 14 hours, because it's 6:45 a.m. right now for me.
Oh, geez, Louise. So that's a lot. That's 14
Yeah.
hours. You're 14 hours ahead of us. Okay, so we're going to end up wrapping this up. So I don't take up the rest of your time because you do need to rest so you can continue doing what it is that you do. You have to work a day job to contribute to what you're passionate.
Right.
I see that you're fully passionate about raising awareness to not just domestic violence, but you're like me, like to causes that are taboo.
Yes.
I talk about incarceration, I talk about sexual assault, I talk about infertility, infidelity, I talk about it all.
Right. Yeah. Very interesting too, and all interesting topics. I am passionate about this, and this is where I'm. Like my main goal, I guess, is to be able to provide some kind of tangible support for men. Like something you can see, something they can touch, something they can be in to get help. So that's what I'm doing. But yeah, you're right. There's so many other topics to cover, and so many other things that are interesting to talk about, and
And you'll get
that
there.
don't get covered.
You're definitely doing a great job. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put the link to your donation website on my description box. You know, I'm going to
Oh,
take you
thank
through how
you.
you do what you do. I'm learning this YouTube thing. I'm learning this YouTube thing. I had
Right.
a YouTube channel years ago. I was like, you know what? I don't really know how to use it, but let me try to use it again. So I thank you for
Okay.
even being my first guest of my new reconstructed YouTube channel, and even for having patience with me with learning how to work the app. I thank you so
Oh,
much. And
oh,
guys,
that's all
make
right.
sure you go and follow Stevie J. You can give out your social media handles, your YouTube channel, and just promote yourself before we depart ways, please.
Okay, no worries. Well, the handle is the same, or the link is the same everywhere. It's Stevie J Raw. That's the YouTube channel. It's the Instagram handle, and also the Twitter handle. So you can find me there. And look, if nobody can find one of those links, I've got a link tree in the description of most of them. So you can find the link tree, and that'll take people to the donation page and everything like that as well for the domestic violence shelter for men. So. Thank you so much.
For
Thank you
sure.
so,
I
so
thank
much.
you. I thank you. Again, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for providing the platform that you do have, again, to touch base on many different topics. I appreciate it, and I'm sure many others appreciate it. So I'm the type to give people their flowers. I'm going to give you your flowers and say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I believe the universe connects people for reasons. We were connected for a reason. I used your platform. You can use my platform whenever. I'm here. You have my full support. And again, I say thank you. Whenever you're ready to go, you can say later, Jazz.
All right, no worries. Well, thank you. And yes, we will definitely, I believe that too, that the universe connects people for a reason. And I feel we'll connect again. So thank you so
For
much. And
sure. Thank you
yeah.
so much. You have a great day. Yeah, you have to. I'm gonna get ready for bed soon.
Awesome.
Later,
Well, have a
later,
great day,
later.
everybody, as well.
For sure. Have
Bye,
a blessed
everyone.
one. Oh man, guys, it was real. It was real. I loved it. I enjoyed it. You guys can definitely, whatever it is that you want to see more of, let me know. I'm here. It's me, Jasmine's Got the Juice, Jasmine Taylor TV. Follow me on all platforms. If you like today's discussion, please give this video a thumbs up. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and turn on the bell notification so that you don't miss a beat. Y'all know the vibes. It's me, Jasmine Taylor. Jasmine's Got the Juice, and I'm out of here, baby.